So I work for a developer. We develop residential communities across a couple different states. And I'm kind of on both sides of the coin. We also have licensed realtors that sell our homes and that are using our CRM. So we have folks from all different sides of our company that are integrated and using CRM specifically. We fully transitioned really to Zoho. The only products that we haven't moved to are finance. Wasn't quite the right fit for us. And then myself and my colleague were in the middle of building custom apps in Creator. We have one we've made for our business specifically for call, tracking and recording and analytics, and then we're working on a second for our home design department.
My name's Robert, and I am a Zoho enthusiast, you could say. I've been exploring the product. I'm not in real estate. I do work for some people in real estate. So really just wanted to get a heads up on some of the challenges that real estate agents have and maybe the ways they're taking advantage of it and how they're using it. So I'm as much a lurker today, listening in and probably learning more from all of you. And I can possibly.
Good afternoon, good morning to others. My name is Laverne Cox. I'm the CEO at Evergreen Investments. We are a real estate services company supporting the transition of residential home real estate investments or assets. We help people grow wealth through advisements from the acquisition all the way through the ongoing operation of ownership. I use Zoho One for my entire team. We are a remote team, and we have been building some standalone creator applications that help us to manage our partnerships, vendors, and our property database.
So yeah, my name is Evan Hessler. So I own a company called RocketOffr. And unfortunately for Roberts and Patrick, I'm not an agent, so I won't be able to speak too much on the agent side of things today. But we have a platform that teaches people how to wholesale properties. So we connect with the nation's various hedge funds that are buying a bunch of properties across the states, as well as about 75,000 retail investors. And so we handle the entire transaction side of the process for our clients. And then we also teach them how to get stuff under contract and how to market and find properties that they can go and sell to these people and make money on. So that's essentially our business model. And we've done a bunch of it through Zoho. Anything that's not Zoho at this point is like a custom application, software application that's been built. So, but other than that, it's like purely Zoho. So yeah, today I was planning on showing you guys two features that we use, the blueprint and the canvas. That said, I also know the ins and outs of CRM pretty well. I use SalesIQ, I use Assist, I use Cliq. So if there's anything that you guys want to see instead, or anything that's interesting, just, let us know, and happy to go on tangents or whatever. So cool. Alrighty, well, so yeah, I have a couple of just test properties here. The first thing I want to show you was just the blueprint feature and how we kind of utilize it in our organization here. And I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar already with what blueprint is, but some of you may not be. And essentially, it's a way for you to map. The way I view it is it's a way for you to map out your business processes in Zoho. And you, as like an owner or an admin in the system, can map out your processes, and then your agents can come on here and they literally just have to click buttons and fill out fields, and they don't have to look through. Like, we have this nice canvas set up, but it's still a lot of information, right? And if we throw a transaction coordinator in here and we tell them, go sell a property, they're like, I have no idea what I'm supposed to click through. Like, there's too much stuff. So the way that we set up our blueprint is so that it's basically like a step-by-step process of them being able to go through and just click buttons, fill out fields, and it does a lot of the work behind the scenes for them, and they know exactly what they need to do at their next step. So that's basically what it is at a high level. What it really looks like inside of our Zoho here We have it triggered once we get something under contract, and the page will just kind of reset. So basically, in the view of one of our agents on our system here, and this is just like a regular user inside CRM, they get to go through this process of our business process, which is only 2 buttons to start off with. They can either assign the property to someone else or they can reject it. But these buttons here were actually custom created inside the Zoho blueprint, and it's actually almost easier to see the entire business process by going into the blueprint itself. So I'm going to do that. So it's under process management blueprint for when you guys create your own. But here's how it works. So it basically comes in as soon as a property is under contract. So this is an important step. This is the entry criteria for the blueprint. So this is basically saying what is going to trigger the blueprint to start. So if this criteria is not met, this will never go into the blueprint and these transitions will never appear. So for us, it's basically just, hey, as soon as a property is under contract and it's not already in this blueprint, just put it in the blueprint. And then from there, we basically have all of our steps for what one of our transaction coordinators needs to go through to dispo a property. So first it gets assigned to one of the TCs. And so, it comes in and then we have a bunch of instructions for the person that's assigning it. After it's assigned, we also have some custom actions that get kind of triggered here. So a lot of what we did on our end here is with the luge. So I know, Robert, you were mentioning it's really tough to set up CRM at first. And I definitely agree there's a learning curve to it. Once you get it down and you start taking advantage of things like the luge, you'll realize that you can theoretically do just about anything in Zoho. You can get it to talk to any other Zoho application. We have it talking to external applications. We have it talking to our title company. We have it talking to our SMS provider. So we really kind of integrated the whole thing together through this blueprint. And a lot of it is with the luge. So it is definitely going to be useful to have somebody in your organization or maybe somebody that you can hire that can go in and actually write these integrations for you. But yeah, so that's the way that it works. So after it comes in, we have some custom actions that happen here. Some deluge code that gets triggered. And you can see we'll reach out to the person and we'll introduce ourselves from the point of view of the actual TC. So that's what we do here. And then so from a high level standpoint as well, the way that blueprint works when you're setting up these transitions is there's basically 3 steps. So the first one is the before. So like, how does it actually go into the next step? So what criteria does it need to hit for this button to even appear? So at first it's super simple. It's just if the stage is under contract for us. As we get further down, we will probably see some other criteria that show up here. So for instance, if these fields are not filled out, then this button will show up for them and they'll have an option to review Verif, which is just like an identification provider for us. So that's the before step. It's like what needs to happen for the button to show up on your view. The during is like, what is the person doing after they click the button? So in here, when I assign the property, this is the during step. It has some instructions for what the person needs to do when they assign the property. And then you can also throw in the fields that they need to fill out, the actions that they need to complete to be able to complete this step. So they would have to fill in the title company emails. And you can also have some, I believe they're called validation rules here. So if they type in something funky, yeah, it won't let you save it. So you can also set up rules like that. So you can be pretty strict with the process that you have. So we go ahead and we save that. So that is the during step. And then the after step is like, after they complete the step, what do you want to happen? So for instance, when they complete the initial marketing here, after they do that, we essentially automatically email some of our core buyers that we think that property is going to work for. and it's just based off of the information that they filled out here. The person that's actually doing this work doesn't have to think about which buyers do I need to email this to, like which one does it match up with, how do I go through and actually email it. It just happens automatically. So that is kind of the after step. So yeah, so at a high level, that's really how I view the blueprint feature. One thing to note is that it works on a single module. So like this is all within the properties module. It's not like if the contact status changes to something else, nothing else is going to trigger. I would have to create another blueprint for that. And another cool thing that you can do too is have common transitions. So at basically almost any point in our process, we could have found a buyer, at which point like this whole thing is, we throw it out the window because we found a buyer, we sold the property, we're done with it. So we use a common transition for that. And it basically means that at any stage in this process, it can go back to found buyer, and then it just ends up over here. So it's super useful. We love the blueprint feature. It was definitely a learning curve, I'm not gonna lie. But a lot of the learning curve too was just like mapping out our business process. Like we kind of knew it in the back of our heads, but like you guys know, when you onboard somebody new, just because you know the process super well and you've been doing it for a few years, they have no idea what's going on. So it's actually a super useful exercise to go through and actually map out your business process anyways, in my opinion, and put some structure behind it. So yeah, so that's basically the blueprint. There's a couple of maybe little kinks that you might want to be aware of. And maybe the Zoho team can speak on exactly what they are, because I don't remember off the top of my head, but I know there is some limit, I think, on the number of transitions that you can have in any single blueprint. And it might be a limit on the number of states that you can have too. I don't remember which, but one or the other, I believe. But there is a workaround behind it. So what we did is we essentially split up our blueprint into 3 separate steps. So that was all part 1. We have a whole nother part 2. And the way that we set it up is that essentially as soon as part 1 ends, we kick it out of that blueprint and we just put it in the part 2 blueprint. So it's pretty seamless to the person going through it. It just means that you have to kind of split it up into separate blueprints. And then we have a part 3 as well. So, so yeah, we mapped it out pretty thoroughly.
Can I interrupt you real quick?
Sure.
Can I ask a quick question before you move on? Because I actually saw in your first blueprint, you had like an exit, a field update in one of your steps. Is that in order to stick it into the other blueprint? Was that what that was?
Exactly. Yeah. So that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. So we basically have a checkbox in here. I think it's in the after. So exit blueprint. So basically, if I want to kick it out of this blueprint, I check this exit blueprint field. So in these intermediate steps, the ones in the middle, I don't want to kick it out of the blueprint. I still want to keep it in blueprint 1. So these are all unchecked. And I believe this one too. Yeah. So the only one that I really want to kick it out is this do initial marketing. This is basically telling it that this is the last step in this part 1. So this kicks it out of blueprint 1. And then, so I haven't looked at this in a little while, but I'm pretty sure if I go in blueprint 2, that's going to be one of the, well, I thought it would be one of the entry criteria. I guess it's not. So yeah, so it kicks it out. And then the other thing too that we had to do, and I'm happy to share this code with you guys if it's useful. We also have a thing here that keeps track of the history of the blueprint. So it's called under contract blueprint history. So basically any time that the stage or the blueprint changes, it puts a little reminder here, or it puts the state here as well as the time that it happened. So this is a way for us to keep track of when it changed state, and then also we can kind of kick it back if we ever need to using this. And there's some deluge code here, which again, happy to share with you guys as well. Although you might have to change it for your use case a little bit. But yeah, Patrick. So yeah, it does.
Where it came from? Just the last place it was.
Sorry, yeah. So the getting, oh, that's another thing as well. So one thing to note as well is that getting the blueprint to go back is not possible just through the core feature itself. So it's not, you can't just like undo a step. So that's a little bit of a tricky thing to work around. One way that we keep track of it, so that's why we have that under contract blueprint history as well, is so that we can see when the state's changed, and if we ever need to go back and fix something, we can. One way that we do that as well is sometimes it's easier, like if I click the wrong button here, and I fill out the first steps and it's wrong. Sometimes what I do is you can clone the property, and then you can go back and you can change that blueprint step. So the blueprint is under assign property. If you wanted to, now that I'm cloning a new property, you can change it to any step that you want to. Unfortunately, you can't edit it on the actual original record because that field will be locked. So if you were to go into here and you try to edit it on this original record, assign property, it's going to be locked. It won't let you. So sometimes what we'll do is we'll just clone it, and then you can change it to whatever step you need it to. And then if you're comfortable with it, you can even delete the original record as well. So, but yeah.
Can I too? Go ahead, Robert. You go first.
Okay, so here's and I kind of try to understand Zoho and where they're coming from, and then on the other hand, try to relay where I'm coming from. So a lot of what Zoho does, or what this guy just went through, and I've done blueprints and everything as well, I try to stay away from deluge because it breaks, but whatever. The assumption is somebody's in front of a computer all day long, and that just isn't what we do. We're out in the field a lot. So you develop stuff here, but then you're out in the field and you got your phone, and that's all that you have. You're not walking around with a laptop in your hand all day. So now, instead of being able to go through these processes or having access to this data of this blueprint you've created, you've got to come back to the office or open your laptop somewhere and now spend the time to remember to go through it. So in my case, everything I build, it has to be able to work on your phone. Otherwise, it's just a waste of time to have to come back and spend 2 hours at the end of the day. And it's something as simple as you have a deal, and let's say you have 10 different people involved with the deal. You have your home inspector, you have your lender, you have whatever. None of that information is on the iOS device. You literally have to open up the laptop to get access to that info. You know, so like you're in the car, you want to call the lender, you want to call the home inspector, you want to call whatever. You don't have access to any of that information. So I think there's a big disconnect between all the stuff you're able to do on a computer, on a laptop or whatever, and all the stuff you don't have access to on the iOS side. Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, if I can chime in as well, I don't disagree. Oh, sorry, there's a bit of an echo.
Yeah, go ahead, Ivan.
Yeah, and Zoho doesn't pay me to say this, by the way, but there is do you have the CRM mobile app? Because you can, you do have to set this up on the computer without a doubt. Like while you're an admin, you have to set up this whole process on a computer, but your agents can be out in the field and fill out the blueprint using the CRM app. It still shows up. So, and there's definitely some, I would say maybe limitations with it, but at least as it pertains to this, you can do that.
You can go through the transitions in your pipeline or deal or whatever you guys call it, but you don't have access to all the data. that's the downside.
What data do you not have access to?
Like I just said, like if you've got multiple people involved in a deal, all those people are not there. And I've talked to Zoho many times about it, and they know that's an issue. They know you don't have access to that information. And you have to go back into this on the desktop side to get access to that data, as well as stuff that you build out through the pipeline. So they know it's an issue. I just, from my perspective, it just feels like everything that, not everything, but a lot of stuff that Zoho designs is for the person that sits in front of a computer all day. That's just my feedback.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. I guess I don't know your process well enough. I know we do have people that use the mobile app. We do have users that honestly don't. I'm not in love with the mobile app personally, but we are able to see all the data. I mean, everybody in our organization can go into the record and pull up all of the data. I would say there's definitely some. I think the UI could be a little bit better, but I would have to see your process to know exactly what's missing there. But yeah.
I wanted to chime in quickly, Evan, and let you know that you actually can go backwards in a blueprint. I was commonly told that as well, and I don't actually know why Zoho believes it, because their support staff will tell you you can't go back, and I do it literally all the time, back and forth and back and forth between, particularly when we make an offer on a property and get an offer accepted for a listing, and then we have to go back to the listed stage. So it is actually possible, and I was told that as well. You can't go backwards in a blueprint when I first hired developers, and you can, and it's not even hard. You can either make a common transition which goes backwards to the previous step, or you can make a new transition. So like when my listings fall out of contract, I think I have a transition that just says contract canceled, and it just goes back to the previous stage. So you actually can.
I see. So for every So for every stage, you have like a step backward.
Every stage, basically. But particularly when the home is listed, is the time I go backwards most commonly. And it just goes back to where it was before with no real downside.
Yeah.
Now, when you do it, it pops up with a little preview and it says, hey, you have these infinite loops in your blueprint. Are you sure you want to proceed? And you just click, yeah, like that's fine, because it gives you that little error message, but you can proceed with it and it works just fine. Just for the record.
Yeah, so the way that, I know what you're talking about. So the reason we didn't do that, I think we tried that in the beginning. We would onboard people, and then they would see another button here that basically says like, go back to the first step, but they would be clicking it on accident, thinking that it was the next step. And so for them, like
that might happen.
Yeah. So from a UX standpoint, it didn't work. And I think the other issue with that for us as well was, again, I don't remember what the limit was, but I'm pretty sure there's a limit on the number of transitions that you can have. Otherwise, we would have just put this all in one massive blueprint. That would have been ideal. But if you have a common transition between every single step, that just, exponentially grows the whole thing as well. And so we would have had to split it up in a million different blueprints at that point. So I think that's why we avoided it. It would be nice to me, it seems like, hey, if we could just unlock this field, then, it would be awesome if Zoho could just unlock it and then just keep track of what the last step was, and then, have an actual like undo button up here. I think that would be amazing. But for now, I mean, this is my little workaround. And yeah, you're right, Patrick. You can also just have a common transition that goes backwards as well. So, yeah.
So what I was trying to say is on the objection that Robert was having in regards to CRM and collecting data in the field. What we found to be very simple when it comes to collecting data in the field is not to use CRM, but to use a form that moves that data into CRM automatically. The forms work very well on mobile. Actually, I feel that they work better than the web forms that you can create through CRM. So Zoho forms, that is what I'm referring to. So create a Zoho form, collect the data that is necessary. And if you are trying to contact or, reach out to the field tech, et cetera, that would just be part of your form. It would just be part of how that form was issued in terms of the requirement. So let's say, for example, you're going out and your title company, appraisal company is coming out or something, and you need to remember who are you going to be meeting at X property. That would just be part of the order form. So that order form would have those contact variables, and then whatever you need to update or that person needs to update on that form, it gets updated and it gets pushed into CRM. That way you don't necessarily have to have your field technician inside a CRM to collect information that's part of a blueprint.
Yeah, right. So I have forms that for open house, for field, for different things to input the data. So if you go into your CRM on your desktop and you go to your related field, and it'll show all the people associated with that particular deal, let's say. And you've got 10, 11, 12 people and all their contact information. That related field does not show in the, with all those people, does not show in the iOS version or mobile version of the CRM.
Okay, what I was trying to say is it necessary to have all of those related, contacts in the field? Why can't you just push the necessary contacts that are, as part of your field experience specifically, or those that need to be contacted for a specific type of transaction into whatever the task is? And this is kind of going back to how we try to order some of our tasks. Just make sure that these people are part of the contact record or the contact form requirement when you're telling them that this is the task that they need to complete. Is that a limitation that your CRM or your field technicians absolutely need to have access at that point?
Okay, so I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm on the road and I go, oh, you know what? I need to call. Let's say a task comes up for myself, or whatever you want to say. You know what? I got a call from the seller saying, hey, you know what? Do you know what's going on with the lender for the buyer? I go, you know what? Let me call them right now. Let me find out. And I would in the past, I would go into my old CRMs or whatever, and I go, who's the lender for this particular buyer for this particular listing, right? For the buyer. But I don't have access to that info. I don't know. So I would have to open up my laptop to get the information for that particular buyer lender for that particular listing, instead of just being able to ask it from my phone and going from there. Does that make sense?
The thing, Robert, I don't know if my computer will, because I mean, I'll just open up I'm sure this is not going to show, but everything in blue is related contacts. I've got lender, title, escrow, both people that referred me, and all of that is right there in the CRM details. But I have an Android phone, so I don't know if that's an iOS issue, because I have iOS.
Same thing.
On a daily basis, I reach out to lenders, contacts, title companies, buyers, sellers, and I don't have any problems.
So on a Patrick, so if you look up a deal, right, and you have a list of all your related people with that deal that you input from the desktop, is all there?
Well, I don't know if it's going to show. I mean, are we able to? I highly doubt that it's going to zoom in. I don't think, but everything in blue for. Let me see. I doubt it's going to focus, right? But let me see. Is it going to focus? No, it's not going to focus. But that, the blue is buyer agent 1, and then I've got listing agent 1, title company, lender, buyers, sellers, and it's all there for me. So I don't know if there's something, maybe a different way to set it up, or how you've got it set up. Maybe might be worth looking into, because it does show up for me on my app.
Yeah, it doesn't show up for me at all. And maybe it is an Android versus Apple thing. And I reached out to Zoho, and they have admitted they know that data is not there. So maybe it is device related. I do not know.
Or maybe it has to do with the way you set it up. Zoho support is notoriously bad at understanding your questions, in my experience. So
I agree.
But maybe send me a
some
message
other
after the
things.
meeting. And it might just be the way you have it set up.
So on your phone, because I can't see what you have, is that particular
Yeah.
thing under the deal under related? There's a contact field.
I'll try to take a screenshot and just show you what my phone looks like, maybe.
You're running Android, you said?
Yeah, I'm running Android, so it might look slightly different, but Evan says he's running Apple and it works. I don't know how to do this.
So Evan, under a deal, under related, you can see all the contacts that are dealt with that particular deal.
Yep. Yeah, we can. So, yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I don't have that particular issue.
Hey, the question I have on all this conversation about the data is are we talking about data that might be being stored differently? Because I'm hearing Robert reference related records, and I'm wondering if these other other data that the people are citing that they can see are simply custom fields. You know, if that's part of the distinction above and beyond the fact that they might be referring to a different platform like Android versus iOS. Just see if people are discussing the actual same data type in terms of the way it's being entered. Because there's certainly a different aspect of entering a custom field than perhaps a related record. Just a thought.
Yeah, that's a good point. For me particularly, I have both, and I do see both. So I think there might be, I would even recommend potentially updating the app on the App Store. I know a couple of months ago I brought a bug from the mobile app to the attention of the support team, and they patched it, and I did have to actually update the iOS app. So I don't know the last time you've done that, but I would recommend giving that a shot as well.
And I just shared in the chat, I finally found a way to send myself a screenshot what my app looks like. Everything in blue is a related record. And I think I was careful not to share any private data this time.
Okay. So is that a listing? I'm assuming.
Yes.
Okay. So that the listing is there, the owner's name, the co-owner's name, but what about the home inspector, the escrow officer, the lender for the buyer, the inspection guy, the septic guy?
On this screen. You are limited as to the number of fields you can put in there, which is an arbitrary limitation. I think it's limited to 10. So you do run out, at least I do, but I think I can fit buyer, seller, listing agent 1, listing agent 2, lender, title and escrow. Oh, I always run out, which is stupid, but you can fit 10 there. And after 10, then it just tells you there's an error. You're like, oh, you can't do more than 10. It's just an arbitrary limitation they want you to do to get you to upgrade to the higher version of CRM. But you can put 10 related fields there. So you might run out if you want to keep an inspector's information there, for instance. So when I run out, which I always do, the less important people that I don't use on every transaction, like a sewer inspector or something, I just put it in notes. But the primary people, buyers, sellers, listing agent 1, listing agent 2, buyer agent 1, buyer agent 2, title, escrow, and lender, I think are the ones I keep on every transaction.
So on the desktop side, is that all under your contact roles, under your CRM, or where are you entering that data?
Yes.
That is so bizarre because
Basically.
I'm looking at a listing right now. I'm looking under contact roles. There's like 12 there, and there's nothing on the
Don't use
phone.
the contact roles. That's part of
What?
the problem. The contact roles are worthless. if you're
So where are
you're using the little roles down at the bottom where they have like the contact roles.
what under what field are all these people that are you putting it under?
So
They're probably custom fields, right? I'm guessing.
they are, yeah, they're basically a lookup field, which you have to enter.
So I'll show
I
you.
don't want to get too much into your personal problem, but yeah, maybe Evan can show you. But the layout, the contact roles don't work for anything good. I don't even know what they're there for. I've never figured out a valid reason to use the contact roles.
So hence my issue with, I guess, with Zoho. You know, it's like they create a field where
right
which
there.
is designed, which is specifically designed for these places to go. It doesn't transfer over, so you have to create custom fields somewhere for them to come
Evan's
over.
got it right there.
Right, you'll just want to put a lookup field. So put in inspector or whatever, and then have your lookup module. Yep. And it will show up as a related record.
Yeah, that's the way to go.
And still counterintuitive, right? I mean, that's, you know.
Yeah, the contact roles, I don't know what they're there for. If anyone could tell me what the contact roles are supposed to be used for, I have no idea.
I've never heard of that. I don't even know what that is.
They don't do you any good, I'll tell you that.
No clue.
And to your frustration, I will say that does come up commonly. There's a lot of things in Zoho where it's like, well, what is this for? I don't know. And the support staff isn't great at giving you the simple answer, because the simple answer is just use a lookup field. That would have solved the problem probably months ago.
and the default on the contact roles, if you look at the role name, it's got 3 or 4 defaults in there that they put in generically to lead you into thinking, oh, that is for that. You know, there's the buyer, I mean, they already have a filled in thing. So very counterintuitive, I guess.
Well, the key here will be to join the little real estate chat group, because that will be much better and faster probably to get in some answers like this. But I will say, I remember looking at the contact roles and they don't do anything. I don't know what they're doing.
Okay, so there's my issue. So you created a specific lookup field?
Right. It's fairly simple. You just drag a lookup field, and you can look up any other type of record. I mostly use it for people almost entirely.
Okay.
And you just say look up people and you give it a name. And then it creates a related list title. So don't worry about the related list title, but then that will do it. And then you just click on it. And then they have a new function, which is extremely handy. I don't know if it's rolled out to everyone yet or if I'm in the early user of it, but you can also add fields of the lookup module, which is really, really awesome. So now I add the phone number and email address of basically every contact record in every portion of it. And then you don't have to, it just saves you from clicking over to them even. And so Patrick, if you do that, I haven't played around with that. If you update their email or phone from your deals module, will it propagate over to the contacts? Well, I don't think so. No, it's like a one-time draw, because I did have that. I updated an email address. Okay. Yeah. So it is. A lot of times what I have to do just for integrations is just literally like have workflow rules that copy a field over from contacts and put it into properties, just so that I can use it for formulas or for whatever I need it for. So I think it's only working once. I don't. Okay. You might have to ask Zoho, because it's a new feature, but it is pretty cool and handy. But I do not believe it's going to update all the things. I think that would be cool even if it was, in sync at all times, even if it was. Yes, I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically when you add a lookup field, and you can add also fields of the lookup field. And so Patrick, does that update automatically? So if you change the email or phone number of a contact, will that update in the places where it's been looked up and referenced?
Got it. So basically what you're asking me is whether it would retroactively update the related data when some change happens on the related module. Well, that's a very good question. Give me just one moment. I am checking this for you.
Look at Evan, you got it right there. Add field to lookup module.
Yeah, add
It's
field
really
to
handy.
lookup. Yeah, that's new to me. That's cool.
The new feature.
That's really
it's
useful because I
convenient.
always had to set up deluge functions to copy stuff over, and yeah, that's nice.
It's a time saver.
It's a time saver
it's a
for
big
sure.
time saver.
And just not having to manage, you know, a million different workflow rules that only copy data over, it gets pretty out of hand. So yeah, that's a nice feature. So yeah, Arun, the question
think it
is
automatically update.
Yeah, I guess I could test it, but I don't really want to mess with my module. But it's okay.
It is a cool feature. I saw that come out, and that was one of the first ones I made use of.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Maybe while he's looking that information up, you can just continue with going over your process there, Evan.
Yeah, so the other thing I was going to show you all, and I can show you anything. The other thing I was going to show you though was just the canvas view. So you guys already saw it, but this is the canvas view once it loads. Let's hope it doesn't crash. So yeah, if your CRM looks completely different than this, then you probably are not using Canvas. If you know what this is, then you probably already have integrated it. But it's just really nice from a UI UX standpoint. It's really the exact same information that you would get on a regular record detail page. But essentially the way we did it is I just started with a template. So I think it's the first template that you have. And it's in detail view canvas. Wait for that to load. Uh-oh. Okay, cool. So yeah, the one that I had there. So why I really like this, it looks just a million times better on desktop than I think the standard record view looks. And I think you can do this maybe in the module views as well. But you can just go in here and you can basically design your module however you would like it. I highly recommend not starting from scratch. It's definitely tedious to set this up. I'm not gonna lie. This took me probably like a few days just to drag all the fields over. The copy paste doesn't exactly just work. But you can put in basically anything. And I think the setup for it is pretty self-explanatory. You just drag fields over wherever you want. I always recommend whenever you're actually doing it, so you have your canvas view up and then have a record up as well. And then every time you save, just reload it so you don't have to go back and forth. And I think even if you edit, so another thing that I found useful, you can have, I forgot what they call it here. You can basically have it so that it's dynamic. So as the data changes, the UI changes as well. So for instance, as soon as it goes into a certain stage, maybe I want to hide or show certain fields. What's also super useful is that I would recommend while you're going through and you're designing the canvas, pull up a record. Which will take a minute. And then, so I always copy over the actual ID of the record while I'm designing it. And I believe you can just paste it in here. There's somewhere where you can paste it in the URL and you can design your canvas while pulling up that actual records data, which is super useful for the dynamic aspect of designing it, because otherwise like you'll click save and then the data is different and then you'll reload it and it's like, why is my view completely different than the way that I set it up? But this is a way for you to save a bunch of time and actually design it way more efficiently. So yeah, that's the canvas feature. The other thing that we do too is we have, I guess it wasn't in that part of the URL, so you'll have to unfortunately play around with it. The other thing that we do as well in our canvas is we, on our deals module, which we renamed to properties, we have two different canvases. and they are basically just assigned to different users. So the transaction coordinators, they use the same contacts canvas. Properties. That's great. Why it's not showing up? Weird. But yeah, well, you can have different canvas assignments. So you can create a canvas for a certain type of user, and then you can create another canvas for a separate user, and they can be looking at the same record, but they can see it two totally different ways, which is very useful for if you don't want person A to be looking at certain fields all day because they're just irrelevant or maybe proprietary, but they need to see something else. That's the easiest way to do it. Just have different user roles essentially, and then have your contacts, or I'm sorry, your canvas assignments based off of that. So yeah, we use that. So we've only built it out for 2 of our modules. It's the ones that we use the most frequently. But it's been very nice. I think our employees like it a lot more than looking at the old record view.
Nice canvas view too. I like your canvas layout.
Thank you. So it's yeah, so I'm not even gonna take any credit for it. So I literally come in here, here's how I did it. Just say I want to make it for this module. I started with the top one. I wanted to say the very first template that they have. And then I changed the colors. I really like the tabs feature. I think the tabs is really nice because it saves somebody from having to just endlessly scroll to find the information that they're looking for. This is the one that I based it off of, so it looks pretty nice already. So yeah, this is what we based it off of. The tabs are super nice once you have just a billion tabs or a billion fields to separate them out, and then they can kind of go through the process that you have, you know, tab by tab. It's very nice. So yeah, that's what we use it for. And you can also put in all of your related stuff too, so all your attachments. If you have the Zoho sign extension as well, your records will populate there. And then we also set it up for our custom modules as well. So this is like a custom module. We built like a button here that searches our database for all potential buyers for this property, so that as a person is filling out all of the records, they can basically click this button and then it will populate a bunch of potential buyers that they can go phone up and see if they're interested in purchasing it. So that's kind of how we use it. With the canvas, it's just a lot more customizable. Once you have like a million buttons, if you were to throw them all on the top of a regular record detail page, it just gets unruly pretty quickly. So yeah. Any questions on Canvas or anything?
Yeah, till we have question, I think Arun has got the details for the previous discussion. Arun?
Yes, Janaki, thank you. So everyone, as I was mentioning on the chat, it's that the field of a lookup module is essentially acting like how it works in a subform. As you might have noticed, earlier we released this feature in the subform where you can have one specific lookup field, say a product, and then you can bring in the rate of the product directly into the subform. It's just going to be working the same way, even in these modular fields. So let's say you are going to be creating a lookup field for the deal, and let's say you go inside the deal and you update the amount. So that updated amount is not going to be coming into the contact. Unfortunately, I mean, it's what the capability of this field of a lookup field is going to give you. It's just going to be helping you not to use a custom function right when you're selecting one specific deal record. But for updation on the deal, you would still have to use a custom function to push those values into the related records.
Got it. Yeah, that's useful. And I guess I have another point as well. I know we talked about the limitations behind the number of lookup fields that you guys can have, and I definitely have that issue as well. One thing that we did to kind of circumvent that, for instance, on a single property, we might have 1,000 potential buyers, and there's just no way that I can have 1,000 lookup fields on this record. So what we essentially have is like an intermediate module that just connects like our property and our buyer. And then for each one of those, it has just those two lookup fields, property and buyer. And then for each buyer and property that we have, it just creates a new record in there. And so from here, then we could potentially see, you know, unlimited number of potential buyers for this property and actually be able to see them all. And that's how we can kind of circumvent that lookup field issue as well. Or you can upgrade your CRM.
Yeah.
For the record, I think they recently changed the numbers that come standard, but back when I ran out, I just asked the support to change it for me, and they just gave me more.
Yes, we do update those on a very case-by-case basis. I mean, sometimes certain requirements of yours might require just like 1 or 2 additional lookup fields just to solve those requirements of yours, right? So we try to evaluate those kind of situations on a case-by-case basis, and then we do approve it at times to have those number of fields added to your account in specific. But it's not a global change that we can do.
And I just told them I needed more, and they just gave me more. So, you know, that was nice. And I think the standard is 5, and you run out really, really quickly in a real estate situation. So I said I need more, and they just gave me more. I still run out, but 10 is enough for me.
And I think I'm not sure, like I heard fully about like what Ivan was giving about that workaround, but I think he was about to tell that creating that intermediate module could solve those situations. And I would second to what he said. I mean, to have that intermediate module, have 2 lookups for 2 of those modules, module 1 and module 10, you create as many records as you want on that module. That's going to essentially act like a linking bridge between module 1 and module 2.
Cool. Well, I'm trying to think if there's anything else cool I can show you in the CRM. I don't know. Do you guys use Zoho Sign? I'll show you a little Zoho Sign trick if you are interested.
I don't use it, so show me a trick. Maybe I'll start.
Okay. Well, if you don't use it, it's not going to be that cool. But I think I don't remember where I did it. But when you use this Zoho Sign extension, I believe it's there's a restriction that you can only use it on certain modules. I think it's like properties and maybe contacts, but you can actually get a workaround with that. You can invoke a URL that basically just passes in the module ID, and you can work around with that. So we use it in our offers module, which unfortunately I don't want to click on because that will have sensitive data, but inside there's still a send with Zoho Sign button. So if you guys ever run into that, because I know we did, because we're like, man, like I go into our offers module and I want to send a contract, it makes sense. So you can actually work around it. Just create a custom button. You can probably screenshot this if you want, and then you can just put in your module ID and it'll work. So and record ID maybe, yeah, record ID. Lastly, one other thing that we do that you guys might like, if you use Cliq, our blueprint automatically sends messages to the owner of a record whenever they need to take certain actions. So that can be useful for you guys when you're out in the field and you update a field and like your guy isn't going to be actively checking CRM while he's out driving around, but maybe he's on Cliq and you can automatically ping him a message and it can tell him whatever you want to. Hey, this updated, you need to go do this or whatever. So maybe that'll be useful for your use cases as well.
And maybe there was like one feature that I recently have come across with one of the customers, and just thought I could share it with all of you. There's something called as record locking feature. Have anybody seen that, or have you already tried using it?
Yes, I've just started using it. It seems convenient.
Not aware. I'd love to hear it.
I'm sorry, what was that, Ivan?
I'm not aware of it, so yeah, I'd love to hear what that is.
Okay. Maybe I'll present with an idea of like what we did. I mean, it was also something similar to the real estate, and so they were getting all those submission inquiries from their website, and what they do is they need to have the salespeople choose what type of inquiry it is going to be. It's a manual process that they have because they have like other processes that they need to follow, and the super admin do not want the salespeople to fill out anything else or do anything else onto the record unless and until the salesperson first specifically designates what type of inquiry it is. So what they did was they set up a record locking feature and stated that the record should always be locked unless and until the category is selected. So when a new inquiry comes in, the entire record is going to be locked with all those pre-filled information by the visitors, and then the salesperson gets to categorize it, and then the record gets opened up for further processing. So that was just like one use case that I felt could be useful for so many other situations too. And
is that like an approval process or like a review process, or is that different?
Yes, it's very similar to approval process, but then in an approval process, you get to approve or somebody gets to approve. But in a record locking, it's more of like just locking the record completely without any intervention. And this could also be a useful situation when you simply want to close or like lock a record when the deal gets to closed one. I mean, previously, what I normally used to do is like set up an approval process and put it into that complete loop so that nobody gets to unlock it. So maybe I'll show you where it can be done, and the screen that's being shared is even. So even if you mind going to the settings of your CRM, and then go to customization, please.
All right, I thought you were gonna ask me to stop sharing. My bad. I got two. Sure. Settings. Settings.
Yep. Let's go to modules and fields under customization, and let's choose any module that you have.
Sure. Okay. Record locking. Interesting.
Yep.
Cool.
That's right. Try clicking on there, and let's click on configure now.
Okay.
So here what we can do is we can choose it to be an automatic record locking, and then we define the criteria. So we can also specifically say that this record locking should be applicable only for which actions.
Got it. Okay, cool. And so wait, so how do they unlock it then? Or is the intention that it never gets unlocked?
No, I mean, you are going to be setting up a criteria here, right? So let's say, for example, when they create a deal, it's going to be locked unless and until the amount field is having some value. So you're going to specify the criteria that when the amount field is empty, then the record is locked, which means when they actually type that amount field, then the entire record gets unlocked.
So, but if it's locked, can they type anything in the amount field?
Yes, they can, because that specific field is going to be unlocked.
That specific field is unlocked. It's just the rest is okay. Got it. Okay, cool. Yeah, that could be useful. Yeah, there's times when you don't want people to go in and mess up your data when you're in a certain state. So yeah.
Yeah, I've used the record locking for. I have a separate paperwork module. So after the paperwork gets submitted to the broker for review, then the record gets locked.
Right, that makes sense.
Things, but they can't change it while it's being reviewed. Automated. It's kind of nice.